Hello, folks. I hope you're well. Hello, everybody. I hope you're all doing well. Today, we're talking about a very important topic, and I'm really looking forward to getting into this conversation. I'm going to be poking Iffy because Iffy is here joining us today, along with a lot of our other friends who, oh, sorry, darling, there we go, perfect stuff. Where we're going to be talking about it's not just hair. The something that you might not have heard of, something that you might not have been aware of. Rihanna and I have for some time now been discussing our frustration about hair removal, and in coming up with different names for our rooms and different subjects for our rooms, Rihanna wanted to talk about hair removal because it's something that she's really passionate about. Given that it's Black History Month, though, and in doing lots of research around hair removal and why it happens and why we do it as women, it was very obvious to me that there's something that is just that little bit more important that needs talking about at the moment, given that we need to be talking about it all the time, to be honest, not just in 1 month of the year, but talking about the concept of it's just hair when it comes to talking about Black women's hair. And I just want to throw out a word of caution around cultural appropriation, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. We have a lot of our friends coming in today who are going to be giving us insights as Black women. I am not Black, I am a white female, but creating spaces where minorities, where diversity, where I don't really like using the word minority either because I like to challenge the concept of what a minority actually is, where we're giving a space to people to voice these things and when we can really grow and adopt change in a way that is supportive for everybody. So it's great to have you here, Rihanna. I just want to hear from Rihanna before we go to anybody else about why it was that you were so passionate about talking about hair removal before we continue.
Oh, thank you, Lucienne. Hi, everybody. I'm super passionate about hair removal, and that is because I actually shaved my legs every single day from, I think I was in year 5 at school. So from being a 10-year-old girl, probably up until I had my children, I want to say my second child, not even my first, I shaved my legs every single day. And I did it because I was hugely embarrassed of the dark black hairs on my body and also the sensory feel of them as well. And something now that and I never questioned it. I didn't want to feel any prickly hairs on my legs. As soon as I could feel a prickle, that was it. It was back to the razor. And the fact that now I'm questioning it and I'm thinking to myself, and since I found out that it's not all over the world, there are some countries where that people don't bat an eyelid with a woman with hairy legs. So the fact that now I can't put on a pair of shorts, or I don't feel like I can put on a pair of shorts and be socially accepted, when my husband can just whack on a pair of shorts if he's hot, that makes me passionate. So yeah, that's why I'm really, really eager to talk about this. And as well, like, you know, are we taught to distrust the hair on our bodies? If from puberty this hair is growing on our bodies, or you know, from puberty this hair is growing on our bodies, and we're conditioned to that we need to be smooth to be socially accepted, are we being conditioned not to accept our female bodies? That just opens a whole can of worms for me, and especially as I'm a mum of 2 girls as well. Yeah, thank you, Lucienne.
Yeah, thank you, Rihanna. So this is how it started. This is how it began when we put together a list of concept ideas for the room. And then, as I say, doing research into hair removal with women, it was absolutely incredible that I'd not come across before the It's Just Hair movement. I think it's quite recent, actually. And it comes off the back of statements that were made by white privileged people talking about women with black hair and saying, well, what's your concern? It's just hair. And actually the history of black hair is absolutely so rich and textured and really fascinating. So we've got a few women on stage who I would love to hear from. Addy, have you heard of the It's Not Just Hair movement? Have you heard about that that's happening across the interweb?
No. I'm sorry to say. I mean, I've heard about the natural hair as opposed to wearing sort of weaves, extensions, and so on and so forth. But please do enlighten me.
Okay, brilliant. So basically, before we begin, I think we need to have a little chat about cultural appropriation first and foremost, and I think that's really important out of respect to those people of colour in the room who are listening to a white woman speak about this. And I'd love to hear your stories. We're waiting for Iffy to come. Iffy is creating this room with us. Iffy, being a black woman who has absolutely phenomenal pink hair, has some really amazing stories around hair. So let me just talk about cultural appropriation first and foremost, because I want to make sure that we cover this. Those of you who don't know me might not know my history with supporting black women. So we need to make sure that this is out there for everybody to see. So cultural appropriation, according to Rogers, 2006, there are 4 different types of what's called cultural appropriation. There's cultural exchange, where there's a reciprocity of exchanging cultures. There's cultural dominance, which is where the imposing or the dominant culture is imposing on a subordinate culture. There's cultural exploitation, which is the taking of subordinate culture for the benefit of the dominant culture. And there's something called transculturation, which is the development of cultural hybrids, when people come together and they live together and culture is created through that diverse hybrid. There's also a term called cultural exploitation. And it would be very easy for somebody to point the finger at me today, running this room as a white woman on this topic, without having black women representing in the room, to say that this is a form of cultural exploitation. And I asked in a room earlier on with Marvin and Iffy around the black heart and how they felt about a white woman having a black heart to symbolize that I stand in solidarity. And it was a really interesting conversation, but I had to ask the question of whether or not this was something that was cultural exploitation, because, flash your mics if you agree with me, there is a lot of purpose washing that goes on in business where there isn't actually activist movement going on. It is just paying lip service to creating a good look for your company and for what you do. And I believe it's really important to challenge that, which is why I will always put myself in the sometimes difficult situation of asking questions as a white woman to better understand and support and stand in solidarity. So cultural exploitation is the appropriation of elements of a subordinated culture by a dominant culture without the reciprocity, without giving it the permission or the compensation or understanding or appreciation. And I come to this room with appreciation for black women who have suffered at the hands of exploitation for so many years. And the It's Just Hair movement is another example, the newest example, of white privileged people understanding or trying to understand what it's like to be a black person and how their hair actually has a large part and form of their identity, just as a white woman's hair does, but how important the whole culture around a black person's hair actually is. And so the cultural exploitation is something that I just wanted to tackle out of the gate. And it's such a shame that Iffy's not here, because quite honestly, I really wanted her to open this room and to be talking about this before I did. So yes, Addy, to answer your question, It's Just Hair is a controversial topic. And it is about a comment that was made to a black woman when basically we have talked about all sorts of exchanges of derogatory comments around women and their hair, the black women and their hair, and people saying, well, why are you so upset about those derogatory comments? It's just hair. Well, it's not. It means an awful lot more than that. So I'd love to hear from some of you. After I have played this clip, I'd like you to hear this clip before we begin. And for those of you who are watching on LinkedIn, I'm going to be showing this actually within the screen. So I'm going to add that to the stream now, and you're going to be able to hear what this wonderful woman, her name is Shan Spear, Shanspeare. She's a YouTuber with 322,000 subscribers, and she has posted a video, Why the It's Just Hair Debate Falls Flat, a history of black women's hair in America. I'm just going to play a short clip.
Because some people like critical thinking skills and empathy. To interact with today's video, you're going to need a few tools. Number 1, a set of brain cells, approximately 3 by 4 centimeters. I purchased these from Lowe's. Number 2, the opposite of whatever an echo chamber is. You can find these in any diverse town far away from whatever yeehaw one you grew up in. I grew up in a yeehaw town with a small population, so I'm not allowed to say that. And number 3, a hammer. Not for any real reason, but I want to make this sound as much like a DIY project as I can. So, let's begin. I think every black girl has a story about her hair, about sitting in between the legs of her mom or her mom's friend as they braid and tug and brush and tie, about the box full of hair bows and conditioning creams, about the tall walls of the hair supply store where everything felt possible, where there were millions upon millions of options for the limited space of her head. I think every black girl has a story about her hair, about the charged comments, the backhanded compliments, about the looks or the sneers, about the shame, about the desire of something else, something more manageable, something more acceptable, something that's not her. My mom started relaxing my hair in elementary school. Looking back, I didn't really need much relaxing because I didn't have that much hair. I remember my mom brushing my hair up into a little ponytail, getting a fake ponytail extension, tying it, and sending me off to school. I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade, hopelessly shy, and generally uninformed that I was supposed to feel any shame of wearing fake hair. The ponytail fell off sometime during the day, and I didn't notice until my teacher found it near the cubbies. She held it up daintily, like she was holding someone's pair of dirty underwear. Then she looked at it and held it up in front of the whole class and said,
"What is this? Is this some sort of toy? Did someone lose a ball?"
Which, okay, she knew good and damn well. In middle school, my mom crocheted fake hair into mine, sort of like a sew-in, but looks a lot more natural. I was in a club, and on that particular day, every kid who participated in said club had their parents come along and attend the club meeting. The day after the club meeting, my friend, who was also in the club, came up to me and told me,
"My mom said that you would be so pretty if you didn't have all of that weave in your head."
By the time I was in high school, I despised fake hair, because all the boys I liked preferred quote-unquote real hair, and all the girls I envied had their hair silky straight. My hair would never amount to that. Years of relaxing and failing to properly handle it left it straggly and weak. It was breaking off at the ends and looked a lot like trodden foliage. My mom told me I had to get box braids to protect my hair. When I finally got the box braids, I went to school in shame. And to my horror, a friend of mine exclaimed upon seeing me, "Shania has the horse bundles." Comments about my hair were never left unsaid. Every picture day was accompanied by the infamous "I like your weave" comments by middle-aged white men who were trying to be nice, but generally missing the mark. And then, in my senior year of high school, my mom cut all of my hair off. It was like that episode of SpongeBob where King Neptune takes off his paper bag hat and reveals the colossal skin you've ever seen in your life. Bald. No one ever explicitly said the word to me, but it was implied through the laughter and side glances. I wasn't spared from strangers, and I wasn't spared by friends. I was told inadvertently, because the person who said it was whispering behind her hands to her friends, that I looked like a boy in a dress. To be fair, the natural hair movement was not anywhere close to being popular among high school children my age, at least not in my area. It seemed like every hairstyle I got, every possible thing I did to my hair, was scrutinized. My hair was not my own. Everyone's opinion, everyone's comments, everyone themselves controlled the way I presented my hair.
And I'm going to leave it there. So a fascinating concept around a young Black woman in America who has a history with her hair, which I don't think will not resonate. I think this will resonate with a lot of people in the room. So Addie, the It's Just Hair movement, your relationship with your hair. In fact, what I'm going to do, rather than just picking on Addie, if you would like to share, please do flash your mics, because I'd love to come to you. Addie, yes, I will come to you first.
Yeah, I mean, from being a little girl, my hair has always been a topic of conversation. I grew up with a white family for most of my life, and so they didn't know how to care for an African child's hair. So often my hair would look like very unkempt, and they'd put a bow in it to try and make it beautiful. But for me as a child, I just saw it as hair. It was more people's view of what my hair looked like that was their concern rather than mine. It was only when I became a teenager that I realized that hair for me as an individual was something that I needed to think about. And again, more because people that were around me felt that if I was, because I would move between Caucasians, Asians, and Black people. And depending on which group I was with, they had a view about my hair. For the Caucasian group, it was always fascinating for them because sometimes I would have it plaited, sometimes I would have it short, sometimes in that time it was the big afro. And so there were always sort of questions of, can I feel it? And what is that you put on it? Why do you have to do that? So you were sort of a point of fascination for the people in the Caucasian group. For the people in the African group, it was a case of whatever was the current trend, if you weren't in it, then you were sort of left out and not considered as being part of the tribe. And I was always out of the tribe because I would never fit into their mold of either having braids or a afro when they were having it. I would either have it after they've had it or before. And then for the Asians, it was a case of those that were from the South America, from Guyana, and were black-skinned, it was their long silky hair, and that's where wigs started to come in. And you just felt that you were like them. But over the years, for me personally, I have embraced whatever look that I want, and I really don't care what people think. In fact, in a week in my office, they're always amazed. I can change my style. I can have it afro one minute. I can have a long wig the next, and it's what makes me happy. And I find it's really sad when you're having to mold yourself to fit what people expect that you should be in terms of your hair. And I think it's very real, because I know that there are many young people that have suffered because they've not been able to embrace who they are. And just as much as you choose the clothes that you wear, you should be able to you decide on the style or what you want to do with your hair. That's my share. And I hope I've added to the debate.
Yes, I love it. I really love listening to you, Addie, always. And like I say, your questions always fuel the room. So it's nice to hear you speaking as a person who is just speaking rather than asking the question, even though your questions are also always amazing. Absolutely brilliant. Is there anybody else that would like to share their experience as a Black woman? We've got, is it Weenie?
Yes, it is.
Hello.
Hello. I was back channeling you saying that, please don't apologize, because sometimes we need champions, and you are the champion, and I'm so glad you brought the Black heart earlier on as well, because uncomfortable discussions need to be had always, because they are uncomfortable. When we feel uncomfortable, that's when we bring ourselves and our vulnerability and our shame, and we talk about it. Sometimes it's resolved, sometimes it's not. So I'm going to share my experience. I am Eritrean, so I have the kind of hair that is almost like a mixed race. And whenever I go to the hairdressers, white hairdressers, then I am told that, okay, it's going to be difficult for us to do your hair. When I go to the Black hairdressers, they don't know how to do that either. Now times are changing, because this is in the 90s that I'm talking about. Now in the 2000s, I can go to any hairdressers and have my hair done. But bringing back to what Ade was saying, it's not because I feel embarrassed about my hair not to put a weave on or to put it on. It's just what makes me feel happy, what makes me feel comfortable. And I don't want somebody to question my desire of wanting to have different style. There was a time when I was working, and I was working with Anneke at BBC, and she said to me, she came to touch my hair, because I had my hair just naturally, just with the curls, the waves, and she came and she pulled my hair, saying like, is this real? And I had long hair then. And that was quite shocking for me, because somebody would check whether it's real or not. You wouldn't do that to somebody else. You wouldn't go and do that to a white person if their hair is real or not. But what gives you the right to do that with me? And instantly, at that moment, I just say to her, what you're doing is not right. What you're doing is not right at all. And I expect to be respected, my space, my hair. And so with all that, later I moved to Italy, and I had a good friend. She is my best friend. And so I allowed her to say it. Somebody else saying that, I would not. I was doing my hair. I'd washed it. So I put curlers, because I've got lots of hair. So, I put curlers there. And she said, oh, your hair is, in Italian, it's called tappeto. She said, no, gosh, your hair is like a carpet. If she wasn't my friend, I would have been completely livid with that, somebody else saying that. Because my hair is not a carpet. It's like, the continent of Africa it's the second largest. And we are Black, and we have different textures. We have different textures that we're proud of. We've got cultures. I have from my culture the way we braid things, and for different ceremonies, you would not find me. So at one point, all this, because my mother started putting perm in my hair when I was a little girl. I think probably I was about 7 or 8. And so later I continued until about 6-7 years ago. 6-7 years ago. And every time it grew, I had to retouch it and just make sure that, it looks fine. And so one day I just went to the hairdressers and I just chopped everything off. And I said, I'm going to start all over again. I'm going to bring myself in and be comfortable with my hair. And if anybody wants to question that, that is their issues that they're curious about, because we forget that even white people put perm to curl their hair. The jerry curls were there from before. So nobody questioned that, why a white person would want to have their hair curly. And so why can't I have my hair be afro and natural, and not be asked that I look different, or oh, this is natural, so you look nice with your natural hair. No. I look nice both ways.
Mhm.
I look nice if I choose to put my wig on, or if I decide to straighten my hair, I look nice in every way. So I don't know if that helps, but it just brought this emotion suddenly, and I'm talking about it, just, recalling. That's what happens, when people say certain things, they forget and they move on, but the other person that has received those comments, we carry it, and then it's triggered. Like with this conversation, suddenly I'm feeling like, I'm sweating because I am triggered because it has taken me back to those traumatic memories. That's me, Rainey. So happy with this conversation. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Wayne, I love having you here, and thank you so much for sharing that. And this is a conversation that we need to have. That emotion that you're feeling is inside of you, and it's inside so many women. I mean, the fact that in the UK, probably in the States as well, I don't know, I haven't done as much research into what it's like in the States. I believe it's probably just amplified, but the amount of women who haven't been able to access jobs, haven't been able to access certain parts of the world because of their hair as Black women, and that creating privilege in Black society as well, and the difference between Black women who could afford to have their hair westernized and those who couldn't, sometimes meant the difference between having a very, very poor life and having, the ability to be able to move up the social ladder. And it's absolutely fascinating. And I'd love to hear from more of our Black females who are in the room who can share about this. Before we do, I'm going to ask Rayanna to reset the room on this very, very interesting conversation. Thank you so much for being considerate enough to allow me to run this room. And this is about you folks. So I want to hear your stories and I want to learn. Rayanna, over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lucienne. Okay, you are in the CEW Club, which stands for the Collective of Extraordinary Women, being brought to you by Master Accredited Female Empowerment Specialist Coach, Lucienne Shakir, and me, the Community Empowerment Manager, Rayanna Wright. This room is being recorded, so as well as being here live in Clubhouse, it's being live streamed to LinkedIn. You can find us here and on LinkedIn every Wednesday from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. and on a Tuesday and a Thursday from 4 p.m. till 5 p.m. And you can make sure you never miss the room by giving the club a follow simply by clicking on the little green house next to the room title. You can keep up to date with what's going on in the collective on Facebook and Instagram by searching at the.c.e.w. Plus, you can follow Lucienne across social media platforms such as Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Facebook by searching at Lucienne Coaching, or by subscribing to her podcast, That's What She Said. At the top of the room, you will find a strategy quiz and support guide that helps you to deep dive into finding out what's stopping you from growing a business you love, along with actionable steps tailored to your needs. We're a female empowerment-driven club, and we love to welcome new voices up to the stage. We can only invite you up if you have a profile picture, something in your bio, and an active link to your Instagram or Twitter account. We also love to welcome our male allies onto stage, and we respectfully request that any shares are in support of the women you hear speaking on stage, and that you keep your shares for a short 30 seconds. When you're invited up to stage, your mic is automatically open, so please make sure you click to mute straight off the bat until it's your turn to speak so that the conversation can continue to flow. Okay, the room set is complete. Back over to you, Lucienne.
Lovely, such a pro. Let's give her a flash of the mics. She sounds so professional. You should be on the BBC, Rayanna. You must be on the BBC one day. Okay, so Fergus, you were flashing your mic earlier on. Would you like to share?
Good afternoon, everybody. What a lovely and lovely topic, and really something that we don't talk about. So thank you so much, Lucy, and really appreciate the platform. This really triggered a lot of things, really. I was just listening, and it's something that I've actually never spoken about. Hair, it's one of those things that you kind of experience it and you just don't talk about it, really. But this just reminded me when Eddie and Winnie was talking about hair, and how the way you do your hair, it's really up to us, and is whatever you feel comfortable with. And just remind me of a situation where I worked in education for a few years now, and I think so I started off wearing my scarf. So I used to go to work with my scarf, and one day we had a party, so I got my hair done, straighten. And I went to the party, and one of my colleagues that I really knew well came to me and pulled my hair and said, "Oh, Firdaus, what hair did you put on?" And I looked at her and I said, "What do you mean?" And she's still pulling my hair, and I said, "Ouch, can you stop that, please? You're hurting my head." And she said, "Oh, but where did you buy it from?" And I said, "I didn't buy the hair. This is my hair." And she goes to me, I'm a bit confused. And I looked at her and I thought, "What do you mean you're confused? Have you not ever seen my hair?" And she said, "No, but like, why are your hair so long? And why are they straight?" And I said, "Well, I've straightened it. They're normally curly, but I've straightened it." And she was still confused. And she had that look of, "You're black, your hair." She had this perception of, black people have different textures, and even in my family, we have different texture. And I explained to her without being disrespectful. And I think I had to calm myself down and kind of explain that ignorancy that came across. If she was in a place where predominant white, I could have understood the comment. But it was a place where, a lot of ethnic minority have grown up. She grew up with a lot of the black children, and she's seen all types of hair. And another one goes, "But if your hair is like this, why are you wearing the scarf? I thought you were hiding your African hair." Laugh out loud kind of comment, she said. And I had to sit down with them. I went there for a wedding. And it wasn't about debating about how my hair looked or why I was covering my hair or, and it became, that situation of, should I get angry or should I use this as an education? So I had to make that choice to actually educate them rather than actually get, upset about the thing. But even though I've spoken to about them, it's one of those things that never leaves you. You always have that comment or that in your head. Is that how they view other children? Is that how, they view other black women? I've got two boys. One has, my hair, and the other one has his dad's hair. And they always had this comparison of, "But why are your hair like this? Are you a mixed race? Why are you an African?" So there's always question about the hair and the identity, which identity obviously is a big part of, your hair. So I just wanted to add to that, and, the fact that, to just for everybody to be free and to be glamorous in however they want to be glamorous. Thank you so much. I think I spoke more than 30 seconds there. Apologies, everybody, but I just love the platform. Thank you.
Oh, brilliant, Firdaus. Thank you so much. And it's the men that we ask to keep their talking to 30 seconds because we're here for amplification. So much like Barack Obama's constituents around the table, we proactively give women a bigger share, the lion's share of the voice in the room, because that's what we support, is creating more balance and equality, and that means giving amplified support to people who have a message to share that we don't usually hear. So Firdaus, thank you so much for being with us, and apologies for mispronunciation of your name as we started. Absolutely fascinating stuff. So a couple of things that I came across in my research, which I didn't know, which is just absolutely fascinating to me. We've heard from the room about a lot of people who their identity is ascribed to their hair, and there's also in many different parts of the world, depending on where you come from, there are different styles which show I'm sorry, I'm going to have to excuse myself because I'm on the LinkedIn Live and I've got somebody who is messaging me saying, "Hi, hello, hi, I like your hairstyle. Which haircut is that? Which hair treatment are you doing?" So that's a good question. Hello, I'm going to continue with my conversation around black hair and black women, and we're going to make sure that the focus is on that. So some of the things that I learned were in certain societies, the higher or the taller your hair, the more wealthy it deemed you to be, which I loved. But also, when we look back at the slave trade in the Americas, the escape routes that were woven in to the hair to show people how many miles to go to the next person that could support them. Just flash your mics if you've heard this, the cornrows in your hair that would show slaves the exit path, basically. Yeah, Elaine is flashing. And I just found that absolutely fascinating, how some women would hide provisions in their hair for their children, and how a hair actually became a huge survival tactic for a lot of women in the Americas during that time. And how very often the women of the house, the white women of the house, would shave their black slaves' hair off because they knew around the beauty and the exoticness, and they were frightened of black women's beauty. And I just find that absolutely fascinating. So if you've never heard any of these things before, please do go and have a look at some of the emerging histories which I had never heard of before because of my ignorance. And I think it's so important that we learn these things. So back to the rest of the room. Flash your mics if you would like to share something around. Iffy's joined us. Here she is. We've had lots of brilliant shares around being a black woman and your hair. Just if there's anybody who wants to share their experience of maintaining, looking after cultural appropriation. Suad is flashing. I'm going to come to you, Suad.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much, Lucian, for creating such a space to be able to celebrate Black History Month over the Atlantic Ocean. I know in the UK we celebrate in October, but America and Canada are celebrating this month, Black History Month. And it's good to kind of to disperse the myth of what is it like to be a black person, to be different. It's really important to discuss so people can kind of understand the other person's point of view. So in my own experience, I came to the West when I was in my early teens, and I've never uncovered my hair. So a lot of the questions that I was being asked was like, oh, are you covering your hair because they're dirty, or are they not done, or things like that, which is quite hurtful because in the morning you wake up and you brush your hair and you want to make sure that you look good inside, but because you cover up for your religious reasons and your faith, people kind of questions. But I've always used, even before I've learned how to speak English, I was always understandable of saying that actually maybe they don't understand, and I would educate them. So I used to say to them, no. My hair is done. It's just that I covered up because it's my religion. And, if some of the women, I used to show my hair, and as Rudo's earlier said, as Black women have different kind of textures of hair. And some of us, so my hair is quite, and none of you, and Lucian and I go on Zoom, nobody have ever seen my hair. It's very curly, very, light textured. And I used to kind of even sometimes make it blonde. Sometimes I used to make it red. It's sometimes black. So you kind of exploratory with color. And then when they see, it's like, oh, it's so nice, it's lovely. Oh, you don't need to cover it. I was like, no, I'm doing it because I've chosen it. Oh, because you have to do it. Is it because you're oppressed? No, I'm not oppressed. It's a choice. I'm doing it because it's my faith. And, throughout that, as a young adult, it's been a struggle. And at times it hurts you. But then you have to kind of understand, when I was in Somalia, nobody has ever questioned my hair or questioned what I'm wearing, because it was the norm. And unless people kind of been exposed to such hair or such culture, it's really difficult. And even in London, which is a very, metropolitan, and it's so many different cultures, you move outside London and it's a struggle still to this date. People look at you differently. And so I made a mission to ensure my daughters never go through what I have gone through. So I had to teach them. Obviously, hijab is a choice, and girls wear when they come of age. Some people choose to not to wear it, which is okay as well, because at the end of the day, everybody's individual and everybody have a right to choose how they want to look and how they want to wear it. And I think that kind of freedom is not just for a black woman or a white woman or someone with a different color or someone with a different religion. It's for all humanity. And I think unless we all discuss it, unless we all debate it, it's difficult. So one of the things that I did, when my girls turn around 4 or 5, I start experimenting hijab. I buy it for them. They try it on. I do a party for them. And then as they grow, they choose when they wear it. My eldest, who is now almost 22, she's going to be 22 next month. She wore the hijab when she was 11. When she was going to high school, she started wearing it from 7 on and off. And then from age 11, she's like, no, Mom, I want to wear it. And ever since, she's never taken it off. My younger daughter, who's 13 at the moment, started wearing it at the age of 5. And when I said, one day it was Eid, and she's like, oh, Mom, I'm going to wear the hijab. And I was like, oh, okay, you don't have to. She said, no, because you and my sister are wearing, I want to do it. I want to look like you. So it wasn't an identity for her. So she started wearing, and I remember going to, year 1, reception. Children used to question them, and I taught them how to respond. So it's really important that we kind of educate people and kind of enlighten them instead of kind of feeling, oh, you're saying this, and kind of be angry at them, because sometimes they might not experience. What I really don't like is when people, you explain to them, you educate them, but they still kind of use the sarcasm, the word, you can tell when someone is genuine and understands what you are trying to explain to them. So this is such an incredible debate to discuss and kind of take the myth out of Black women as in general, and all women in all society. We have Latino, we have white, we have Black, we have people with brown, we have, different texture of hairs. People choose to color, we have our friend Iffy who chose to wear pink. We need to celebrate everybody. We need to kind of choose everybody, accept who they are. And I'm going to keep it there because I think I got passionate there. So thank you so much, Lucienne and Iffy and Rihanna, for creating such an incredible space. And let's continue to have this dialogue, and let's continue to advocate what is right for individual, regardless of who they are. Thank you. I pass the mic.
Thank you, Suad. Yeah, what is right for the individual. I absolutely love that. And no wonder you're passionate. This is, in terms of our identity, no matter who you are, it's a huge part of our identity. I know a lot of men who are balding, and it is a really difficult part of their, I suppose, coming of age. If they're one of my friends, particularly who's quite young, who is balding pretty severely, it has really hit him in terms of his identity. And I think if you have had that struggle from the very, very first day dot, when you are socializing with others and, people pulling at your hair, I can only imagine what that must be like. I imagine it as when you're pregnant, people touch your stomach, they touch your belly, and it's just completely unwanted. Just flash your mic if you've had somebody touch your hair without permission. Yeah, I find that that makes me so cross, makes me so livid. And another thing that makes me really cross is the person who is watching on YouTube, SP, who is telling me to put my hair across the front onto my chest so that they can see how long my hair is, and to give them a reply. I'm sorry, I will not be replying. This will be the only communication that I give you. What you are doing is not appropriate, and it it makes people feel uncomfortable, and it is no way to engage in a conversation with somebody. So please stop. I have blocked you, and well, I am about to block you now, and it's not okay. What you're doing is not okay. So please do stop. Okay, right, I'm going to come to the rest of the room. I saw Iffy flashing. Iffy has got amazing hair. I'd like to come to you, Iffy. What are your thoughts on this?
Wow, Lucienne, what a great conversation that you've cultivated. It's been lovely. So I could talk about hair in so many ways. So first of all, with what Suad shared, thank you, Suad. I actually didn't know. You shared so much stuff that educated me around you. So I think creating this space is brilliant because we can all learn and grow. If we're talking about hair, I do love my pink hair, and I feel like my personality becomes more powerful when I have pink hair. That's what people say, that I've got more energy with pink hair. Maybe it's my persona. Who knows? But I think growing up, I always wished I actually hated my hair. Growing up, I hated my hair. I hated the amount of time it took to do my hair. Believe it or not, even though I grew up in a white household with a white mum and dad, my white older sister, who was much older than me, she's actually 60 years old right now. She actually, because there was me and my other sisters, she actually learned to practice how to do braids on one of those little doll heads. And she always did our hair, and she always spent time studying it so that we could look lovely. And we used to have braids in, me and my sisters, we all had braids. But I remember sitting on the floor on a cushion and her doing my hair, and it would just take hours, absolutely hours. And I didn't like any part of it, to be honest. Oh, got a hot mic. Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't like sitting there. I didn't like how tight it was when I went to bed. And I certainly didn't like having to take it out. It's like a full-on thing. But it was part of my it was part of my childhood. Hair was a big part of my childhood. But when I got to a certain age, I had my hair relaxed. Now, my hair is afro, so it's very, very curly, very, 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 very tight curls. And when I was 5 years old, my birth mother actually came and took me from England and took me back to Nigeria. And I was told by my mum and dad, the people who raised me, that when I came back, that my hair had broken all around my sides where they tried to relax it. And then as I got older, I kept saying, I want straight hair, I want straight hair, I want straight hair. So I started to get weaves. And I used to just wish that my hair was straight and looked like the white girls in my class. You know, I really didn't grow up with a positive attitude towards my hair. I didn't like it at all, actually. But as I grew up and as I started dancing and performing and meeting more people who looked like me and they were celebrating their hair, I started to I suppose accept it a bit more. But then as I've grown up, I've continued to wear weaves. I wear hair extensions. I wear wigs. I wear I think one of the most important moments of my life with hair was in 2010. So in 2010, from 2008, I was been wearing wigs because my hair, all the sides are all completely broken and there's no hair around the sides at all. So I used to wear wigs. And then I got into the Big Brother house, which is a television show which is seen by millions of people. And when I was in the house, you're filmed the whole time. The whole time you're filmed. And my sister and my family said, well, what are you going to do when you're in the house? Because you take off the wig at night, don't you? And I just said to them, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to be me. So then there was this whole scene and it was all over the newspapers and everything. I went into the Big Brother house and then one evening I was dancing and my wig fell off and it was like a TV moment. I was doing Proud Mary dance of all dances. And then when it came off, it kind of told everyone in the house I was wearing a wig. It was all televised. So then I just started to just wear my really short haircut. And then even in the house, they shaved my head with a Bic razor. And I just started not wearing the wig, sometimes wearing the wig. And I was probably the first person on TV, black female person on British TV, to take a wig off and put it on and walk around and be seen without a wig on and with a wig on. And the people in the house really just accepted me for who I was. But when I came out of the house, I had so many people who were cancer survivors saying that I had changed their lives, that by me taking my wig off and putting it on and making it not a thing gave them the confidence to take their wigs off and put it on. And I got offered a wig endorsement deal, and I started getting asked to talk about hair more. And I didn't realize how powerful me just having my wig like on the floor or on the side, what it did for I suppose British, I'm not going to say British television, but I did get overwhelming, maybe 800 and something messages about my wig, and also if I had cancer as well, so I had to clear that up. And yeah, so I think hair is a really important part of my life and my journey, and I just chose to go pink because when I'm pink I just feel unstoppable. So thank you, Lucienne, thank you for giving me space to share.
Thank you, Iffy. How fascinating is that? Being in the Big Brother house and that being the, I think that would have been a really pivotal moment for so many. And I really do salute you for sharing that with us, because I don't think it's easy when you have a hairstyle that changes. I remember I change my hair all the time. I've had neon pink hair, red hair. If you look back on my socials, you'll see it. And the kids at school would always say, these older teenagers, they'd be like, "Miss, are you wearing a wig? Miss, are you wearing a wig today?" And, it wouldn't bother me because I wasn't. But if I had have been wearing a wig, I think that would have really, really bothered me. I think that would have really upset me. And I wear hair extensions, which I came across for the very first time when a black friend of mine did actually plait in a weave into my hair. She was like, "We can sort this out," because I damaged my hair so much. And I had a weave put in. And oh my God, that night, Iffy, what you were just saying about the tightness of that first night, just flash your mics if you've ever had that, where you've had plaits really tight in your head and then you've had hair sewn in. Oh, my head, it's so tough. So the things that we will do to be in our place of power, or what we perceive to be our position of power, because I feel much more powerful when I've got long hair. So Iffy, I love your share. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking your wig off, or for serendipity in your wig falling off while you were dancing, to begin that open movement towards seeing people without their wigs on. So thank you for that. Excellent. We have 9 minutes of the room left. I would love to hear from anybody else who would like to share their hair story with us. Elaine is flashing, and then we'll come to those of you who are flashing as well. Abby, Rita, I see you. Jacqueline, I see you. So Elaine, I'm coming to you.
Hi, I hope you can hear me. I'm actually at the hairdresser.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I have been listening to some of these stories, and for me, when I was young, I had hair all the way down to my back, thick and curly, and I was asked whether my father was Indian. But we have Indian, we have Dutch, Portuguese in our family. So obviously, it's a throwback. I've got cousins who are darker than me, who've got green eyes, and they're asked, are they contacts? But that's a different conversation. But for me, I have always been taught by my mother that your hair is your crown and it's not your identity. So you can wear your hair any way that you want, but you are still that person. And so for a long time, I did have wigs, I had weaves, I had everything. But now I wear my hair very short, you can see in my picture, and I colour it because it's my crown. It's the crown of who I am. And I can sit in boardrooms with all white males, and nobody would ever dare touch my hair, because anybody who knows with Elaine knows she could never come to me with that kind of nonsense. So it's a kind of stance that you have, a kind of grace. But I'm a very firm believer that your hair is your crown. And it's a similar thing. I think I sent you a message, Lucienne, that my children, I always tell them that you have to look a certain way, then when you get through the door, you can do what you want. I'm not saying come in with cornrows or anything like that. I'm going to cut your hair so you look GQ style. But then when they used to cut their hair and they used to go to school when they're about 8 or 9, people used to say to them, they were at a Sussex boarding school, and they would say to them, why are you bald? But actually, you weren't bald. You've got hair in your head. It's just been cut, so it looks nice, and you don't have hair in your face, and you don't totally unkept. So I think, although we're talking about the story of a woman, very often black men also get a hard deal in the fact that they're trying to keep their hair tidy. They can't win. You're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. They can't win. And then I also wanted to say that with every black woman, and I can't speak on behalf of Asian women, I can't speak on behalf of mixed race women, I can only speak on my experience, and that even within the black community, and I think you raised this earlier with the slave trade, that everybody's hair experience and hair journey is different. If you spoke about her being in the Big Brother house and her wig falling off, and all of a sudden she's somehow related to be maybe a cancer survivor, and that shows you the narrative that's been put out there for people to understand. If you girl, I would have loved it if you kept that hair short and you dyed it pink. Like, that's a whole nother conversation. But I love the fact that you are wearing your wig and you are wearing it proudly. What's happening in our community at the moment is that little children are now putting on their mums' wigs, and it's very interesting that there's this whole phase of children going, yeah, my mum takes off her wig at night, and it's nothing to be embarrassed about. But one thing I did want to raise before I close is that Kim Kardashian started wearing braids, cornrows, and acted as if they had come from her, like she was the one that had set the trend. Actually, no, boo, you took it from us, but that's fine. But I just wanted to say, because I think earlier somebody had spoken about relaxing their hair, and that there was a trend for Caucasians to also relax their hair as well. But there are some things that other cultures take from us, but then they act as if they were the ones that the trendsetters. And I think it's really important to educate people. I'm not going to educate you when you ask me why my hair is curly. That's why the internet is there. That's why Google is there. You can just type it in and it will tell you, because it's actually exhausting having to explain. I don't ask you why your skin is pale and why your skin is pink when you drink alcohol. I don't ask you those questions. So I find it quite offensive when you ask me, why is your hair straight today? Why is your hair curly today? I'm Elaine, I'm done speaking. I'm not going to talk anymore.
I love her. I love her. Flash your mics if you love Elaine. Your hair is your crown. Here's to Elaine and that. And we were talking earlier on when we opened the room. I gave the definitions of cultural appropriation, because when I opened the room, we didn't have many black people in the room, and I wanted to make sure that I had covered the fact that I understand and that people need to go and research what cultural appropriation means. And there are 4 different types. There's cultural exchange, where there's reciprocal exchange between cultures in what they wear, how they live, etc. There's cultural dominance, which is imposing the dominant culture on a subordinate culture. So you could argue this has been the case for black people who want to be in the corporate world, for example, and having to look a certain way. There's cultural exploitation, which is the taking of subordinate culture for the benefit of dominant culture, which is what Elaine was just describing there. And transculturation, where there's a development of cultural hybrids amongst people. But then there is also cultural exploitation. And we were talking about this because people could very, very easily point the finger at someone like myself and say that this is culturally exploitative, because there is so much purpose washing that happens in business these days, where lip service is paid to creating equality, and it isn't actually in the walking of the walk. And so cultural exploitation is the appropriation of a subordinated culture by the dominant culture without permission, compensation, understanding, or appreciation. And again, that comes down to what Elaine was just saying, which is absolutely fascinating. And I want to make sure that if you are white and if you are a privileged white person listening in this room, please do go and educate yourself on what this means, on what this means for you, on what you've learned today, on what you've heard today, because it is so important that we start start to grow together, and we give true credit where it's deserved and where it's needed as well. And I open the room by sharing Shan Spear's work, ShanSpeare, a Black woman on YouTube who has 322,000 subscribers, and her video on why the "It's Just Hair" debate falls flat, a history of Black women's hair in America. So we were going to do this room on hair removal, and Rayanna and I were talking about all the different topics that we wanted to do, and in researching this, the "It's Just Hair" debate was really prominent. And given that it's Black History Month in the States and in Canada, although I do feel that we should have Black history all the time. We should have history of culture all the time, and it shouldn't just be given to a month, but that's my opinion. I do think that it's very, very important that we are educating ourselves, that we are going and seeking out these things. When you hear something like "It's Just Hair" debate and you think, oh, I've got no idea what that is, going and looking it up and finding out what it actually means. I think that that's really, really important. Okay, we are due to close the room very soon. I will come to Iffy in just a sec, but we did have a couple of shares that were very quickly, if we can. So flash your mics if you would like to share. Jacqueline, I'm going to come to you, if you wouldn't mind as quickly as you can.
Thank you so much, and I want to particularly say good morning to all the women in the room, and thank you, Rayanne, for inviting me up to the stage earlier. I needed to listen before I could join you. I really hope that there might be another opportunity to do a part 2 of this discussion, because I know you want to wrap up the room. There are so many things that I'd like to share. One thing I'll just put out there for you to know, that in the States, the Crown Act is a piece of legislation that each state is often grappling with. To date, from 2019, I think it was July of 2019 to August of 21, only 12 states out of 50 have added the Crown Act to their legislation, and it's a piece of legislation to not allow discrimination based on hairstyles and colors and cuts and all of that sort of thing. And the fact that that it's even necessary still boggles my mind, but it also proves that with 12 out of 50, it's still a very slow process. And there's lots of cultural reasons and other things that bubble up in terms of history that make it not only a necessary act to incorporate into state law, but how it evolved, which many of you have touched on this morning. So thank you for that. It's 9:01. I think I got it done in a minute, but if you have a part 2, I would love to come back and share with you some of the other things I wanted to say. Thank you.
Jacqueline, I love that. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for staying to the end to share it. What I'm going to say is, because we have a room every Wednesday at 1 o'clock, we also have a room on a Tuesday and a Thursday at 4 o'clock where we tackle these conversations, where we amplify women's voices, and that's a real passion project of mine. I have a podcast called That's What She Said, and I've interviewed people around the world who share their experiences of being women, and I'm challenging history by really, really amplifying her story, and that real emphasis on a woman's path in the world, historically and today as well. So what I'm going to say to the room is, if you would like to go, Rayanna, I know that you have a tight schedule, and I know that you are in my business, so I'm going to say you don't have to be here. If you need to go and do your things, that's completely up to you. Rayanna, is there anything that you wanted to say before you do go?
No, I mean, the conversation has just been enlightening for me, and incredible. And just when everybody speaks, the love I feel for everybody, and just feeling in tune it's just been incredible. So thank you so much to everybody who's been enlightening me today. I'm here to listen and I'm here to learn. I'm Rayanna in the Red, and I'm done speaking.
Oh, I love that, Rihanna. Do feel free to leave whenever you need to. And those of you who are in the collective of extraordinary women, if you want to head off, then please do. However, I'm going to keep the room open because, as has just been shared, I think this is a really important conversation to be having. I don't feel like there's enough conversations on this. And whilst we are talking about it, it feels like a real shame to cut it off early. So I think the one time that I actually do keep the room open longer than 2 o'clock, it really deserves to be this room. So that's what I'm going to do. Before I do that, though, I will say I'm a small business, so I'm going to plug my services. So if you don't want to hear it, just switch off for a minute. But if you are interested, then open up your ears, because I open my membership once in a blue moon, and it's open this week. We are here every single week on a Wednesday at 1 o'clock. However, this week happens to be the week that we are opening the membership doors. And what you can do is you can go ahead and follow us on Instagram. I am a master accredited coach, and I lead group coaching and masterclasses in this business and mindset mastery group, which was founded out of frustration that there wasn't enough support and affordable the affordable level, really, which wasn't exploitative to people in business. And I created that space, and it has massively created this community of extraordinary women who are doing incredible things. I used to feel so uncomfortable selling my services, and now I just don't care because it's absolutely brilliant. And the wonderful lady in red to my left or my right, however you think about it, is Rihanna, and she is our community empowerment manager. And what she does is ensures the smooth running of the accountability and making sure that the community knows where everything is and keeping us all going. And I can just show up and coach and do what it is that I do best. So that's the team. We have a few others and then other members as well. And if you would like to, the priority list is closed now. However, if you do want to join, there is an opportunity to join a masterclass on Thursday at 7 o'clock, and you can come along and ask questions after that masterclass. So head over to my Instagram, go and click on the link in bio and have a find out of what's going on. And with that being said, I'm going to move back to the conversation. So I loved what Jacqueline was saying around the history of state law and the current state law as well. I mean, it is just amazing. And Iffy told me about a law that's just been passed in the UK, which is absolutely absurd that I didn't realise had happened. And sticking to the theme of Black HERstory and HERstory, I should have done a double meaning. Would you like anybody here on stage to share your experience as a woman with your hair? Flash your mics, because I'd love to come to Rita, then we'll come to Iffy. So Rita, coming to you.
Good afternoon. I love the share that most of the women they've submitted, but just to kind of share my story a little bit. I grew up in Nigeria, and I have beautiful hair. It was cared for by my parents. So when I came to Europe, where I was living in Denmark, I was just the only Black lady that lived in a whole large space. So it was very difficult for me to do my hair when I went to school there. A lot of things around my hair. So a particular time, my sister had come also, we had a place we were going, and there were a lot of Danish pretty, young ladies. I wouldn't say anything bad about this ladies, but myself and my sister, we thought we were looking fly, we were looking super late, we had these braids, put in. We actually took time to get our hair done properly for this event. Then there came this, 4 girls, Danish girls, rubbished us from head to toe. And the word, the choice of word, I can't even, it was so bad, I can't even say it, and referencing our hair. Oh, my sister is furious. She got at and, drew one of the girls. I was like, I was shocked. But the thing about it wasn't just how the words were said, it was how it made me feel at the time. I just coming to the country, to study, and that was years back. But I know it's changed now. But can you imagine, sometimes you think about it, if I reflect, you think about I haven't done everything just to kind of feel good for yourself, your mindset, everything about you, feeling, oh, I've done myself, I'm looking good, my hair is in order, everything. Then you go to a place where other people are, you just rubbish, you just put down. You know, at the time it was so bad, but now I can actually say a lot of people are ignorant. It wasn't me or my sister, it was just those group of people, because over the years now, you know, I have nieces, I have friends, you know, that have had children in Denmark. It's changed. So which means even, you know, in a place where people can be hosted, you will still have that change that would happen. So we have to keep on pushing, you know, because sometimes, you know, people would just, it's just in them. They can't do better. They cannot elevate. They cannot appreciate. It's just them. But when I go back to Denmark now, I see what has happened. A lot of, you know, kids of people that came, immigrants or people that have come into the country at the time I came, their children, the way other people, the young generation, they admire black hair, the way we can just switch from red color to pink color like Ify, the way we can cut our hair short and tomorrow just wear a wig on it. You know, it's so lovely. But I just think, you know, there are going to be people that would, irrespective of who you are, the color of your hair, how you look, they're just bad. They do not know how to appreciate other people. They do not know how to infuse, you know, positivity. It's just those kind of people we need to be very, you know, we need to be wary of such people because they're just there, irrespective. Just to say that my hair was good at the time, but those people did not appreciate it. When I look back now, what would I have done better? Nothing really, because I couldn't have changed those people because that's just the way they are. I think we're more research. I think somebody talked about research, you know, directing people to the right place, maybe rooms like this. They wouldn't understand that. Sometimes when they act in the way they act negatively, it does affect people. And some of those things, it takes time to leave people. My name is Rita Alwade. Thank you for allowing me to share, and I yield my mic.
Thank you, Rita, for your sharing. Yeah, the people that you surround yourself with, and that essence of feeling beautiful and having wonderful hair, and then that being rubbished when you're around a certain group of people is fascinating to me. So I am half German, and next week we're going to be talking about body hair. And I can feel, as I'm saying these words, I can feel myself growing uncomfortable as I say it. This is how indoctrinated it is in my body, in the ickiness of saying what I'm about to say, but really wanting to not feel icky about it. And as a German, having underarm hair was really, really normal. And we're actually finding that teens in the UK are growing, female teens in the UK are growing their underarm hair as well. It's becoming a lot more common for girls of a certain age not to shave anymore. And I think that's absolutely wonderful. However, I am of that generation where, like Rihanna, I was shaving every day. I was shaving under my arms every day. And then I would go to Germany and I wouldn't feel like I had that pressure. But when I came back to England, I would have that pressure again, and girls would think I was disgusting, and I would shave under my arms. And it turns out I do shave under my arms now. I actually have my arms waxed because I find it a lot more comfortable. But the fact that I feel uncomfortable talking about underarm hair here and now just goes to show just how soiled women and hair actually is, and this conversation around women and hair actually is, and how it's been used to control the narrative around what is beautiful and what is not beautiful by people in power. And I think that's really important because, yes, the male gaze is a strong indicator of where women have changed to appeal to men, but also from women who are in power, women who would make other women feel very uncomfortable because they dressed differently or because they lived differently, and it created fear in a lot of echelons of society, white society, when that was surrounding them. So I think it's really important for us to understand that the people that we surround ourselves with, you know, are we brave enough to be who we are regardless of who's around us? I think that's a really good question to ask. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to share before we close the room? Ify, I said I would come to you, and then Rihanna. So Ify, you've got to share around the boys and schools as well.
Yes, thank you. But before I do, wow, Lucia, whenever I am around you, I feel like I grow as a human being. You know, you really do make me think, because I suppose the whole hair conversation, like underarm hair, yeah, I think I'm one of those people. I've seen people with, I'm one of those people that have looked and gone, you know, I actually am, but I'm not going to be. You know, my brother's married to a Spanish lady and she doesn't shave under her arms. And I never really thought about it's because it's a cultural thing. I just thought, I don't know why she don't shave under her arms. But that's because I don't have the knowledge. I'm ignorant to the fact that. So, like, you bringing up the whole hair thing, I was thinking, I wonder how many times I've judged somebody and I didn't, because I didn't know. So that I'm just going to work through that. But what I wanted to share was with my boys. So I've got 2 boys, and this is coming off the back of what Elaine said. So my boys did go to a school. They did go to, anyway. There was a time when they both went to the same school, and the head teacher was a black head teacher, which is a big deal because I live in a very, well, anyway, it was a big deal. The head teacher was a black female. And I sent Quincy and my eldest, and he's had his hair cut. He's always had this little high top, short around the sides, short and back. And the teacher pulled me aside, the head teacher, and said, he can't come to school with his haircut like that. And I said, why not? And she said, we've put a rule for all of the children that they can't have their short sides and back. I said, why not? That's just how we wear our hair, like meaning we, black people. And she went, but more and more white people are adopting this hairstyle, and we've decided as a school that it's just something that we can't have. And when we were talking, Elaine was talking about like Kim Kardashian having the braids, like this whole style of the high top and the curly bit on top and the short sides and the back, which men are doing, that's the thing that a lot of black men do, black boys do, this whole short sides and everything. And it's been adopted by the white culture, which is great. But I think that when the school then start changing, saying that they can't do that because everyone's doing the style now, I think what it does is it takes away my son's identity. So my son would have that style anyway. But now, to make it fair for everyone, nobody's allowed to have a short sides and back. They have to have it at a certain level, which I thought was really strange. And it was coming from the black head teacher. So she's obviously in a very difficult situation where she's having to be fair for everyone. So, and just to add to the boy's hair, my friend's got a son, and his hair, they sent him home from his independent school because they said his high top was too high. So there are definitely things that are still happening, which I don't know how the schools are approaching it, but as a parent, I just do what they say. I literally just say to the barber, don't cut it too short because it'll end up in drama for the head teacher. Because other parents, she said, will say, how come Quincy's allowed his hair that short? My son isn't allowed. And it just makes it all uncomfortable. So sometimes I see you flashing. I just say to the barber, just don't go too short because he's not allowed it. So these are things that have actually started to affect the way that my children go out into the world now. So it's just a conversation. I just thought I'd throw it into the ring. Thanks, Lucienne.
Yeah, I love that, Ify. Thank you for that share. And it's interesting. I worked in an all-boys school for 5 years of my teaching career, and the notion of uniform came about so that there was a lot less social discrimination, so that you couldn't see if people came from a poorer background or a richer background, and was a social levelling tool that was used. At the time, the Labour government brought in the comprehensive schools, and uniform became compulsory in all of those comprehensive schools in the UK. And I suppose it comes back to that, you know, what you can afford and how you can express yourself. So if you're wearing a uniform, how can you express who you are in your identity and individuality? And you can do that through your haircut. I know that I used to be terrible when it came to school uniform. My trousers would always have a little flare of something on them, and I would always push the rules. I'd always have my earrings in, even though I was told not to. And I was determined to express myself. I was determined to be allowed to wear what I wanted to wear. So I would try and do that in a covert way. And when I was teaching in a secondary school with all boys, you know, the conversations that we would have around hair and around the appropriateness of hair, you could see how uncomfortable the leadership in the school was around addressing that principle. And where do you draw the line? And what was really interesting is I once got called into the head teacher's office as a senior member of staff in the school to have a conversation about the colour of my hair, which wasn't deemed appropriate at the time, at which point I laughed and said, if you want to pay for me to have my hair colour changed, then you're more than welcome, but if it's that much of a problem for you, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to leave. And it was one of those conversations that was really, really difficult, really, really hard work for me, because I just wanted to be furious, but I couldn't be. I had to be really straight down the line. And so I think when it comes to hair, our self-expression, you know, and we're coming back round to what we said at the very beginning, being able to just do what we want to do without the repercussions and the insensitivities of people saying something about our hair or having the audacity to touch our hair. I mean, I just cannot believe that. I find that absolutely infuriating that you've had to endure that, except for Elaine, who says people know what will happen to them if they even try and touch her hair, and I believe that. Absolutely. I love it. Right, who else wants to share? We're keeping the room going because this is an important conversation. Jacqueline, you've unmiked.
Yes, thank you. And I don't mean to disrupt your flow, but I wanted to ask Iffy, did I understand you to say that they spoke to you about your boy's hair because they didn't want to be unfair to the rest of the students because the white students were adopting that style? Or did I just completely misunderstand that?
No, definitely. That's exactly what I said.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
So how is it fair that your children, and I know this conversation could go forever, and I'm sure you've thought about it, your children should be denied their style because the white children can't pull it off, or the white children's parents are complaining? Can't they tell their children how to wear their hair?
Yeah,
Exactly.
It just amazes me. So as long as I'm getting a chance to speak again, I just wanted to throw in, I was at a museum reception function a few years back, and a woman that I'd worked with through our local symphony orchestra, who I've met many times, who's an artist, who's a creative, who I consider very sensitive. I hadn't seen her for a while, and she saw me, and we started chatting about the exhibit. And then she turned to me and said, "Oh, Jacqueline, I love your hat." And she reached up for my hair. And at the time, my hair was much shorter, and I had a headband on. And I backed up and I said, "It's not a hat. It's my hair." "It is?" And I mean, she was just so stunned, and I was more so stunned, because I would have thought that someone who was with a focus in the arts and creative and culture and understanding the nuances of creativity, I just bestowed her with the idea that she would have a bigger world view of that. And in fact, she did not, by that one behavior. So just wanted to put that out there. And I think I'll give the mic back now, but thank you for allowing me to share.
Of course. No, I find it fascinating, and this is why we opened this space, was because of the research that I was doing. And this I do encourage everybody here to go and look up the narrative around the "It's Just Hair" conversation, which comes as a backlash from Black women talking about their hair, and a white privileged person saying, you know, what are you talking about? It's just hair. Well, everybody here, flash your mics if you believe that hair is not just hair, and it is a very, very important part of who we are. And to say that is absolutely ridiculous. Right, flash your mics if you'd like to share. Rihanna, sorry, I said I'd come to you. Coming to you, Rihanna.
Yeah, I have a share from the back channel from Anthea, who can't come up to stage at the moment, so I'm just going to read that out. Hang on. Anthea says, "I was always taught to be proud of my hair. Afro hair is in a world of its own, and I love it. It defies gravity, and I think Black children should be taught to love their natural hair. Much of history teaches us that our hair is unacceptable. Even today, there are children being told they cannot wear locks in the classroom."
Yeah, it's such a terrible shame, isn't it, really? Elaine, you're flashing.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I think the comment that Anthea said about locks. Now, I always say to parents, because a lot of you know that I deal with a lot of educational institutions, especially independent institutions, that I always say to parents that you can have your culture, but wear it with style and with grace. So there's locks and there's locks, right? Let's be really clear about that. It's just like, I mean, make your locks look so heavenly and so lovely that everybody wants to have the locks. And so I think that sometimes as Black people, we so badly want to be accepted. I mean, we so badly want our hair to be accepted that we don't represent our hair. We don't present our hair in a way that's excellent enough. And that is where I have the challenge. And that's where I'm like, when the school says, well, you can't wear it like that, I'm like, well, let me see what your hair looks like now. And if it looks like that, I'm like, well, I wouldn't even take you for a job interview. Why should I expect it to look like that at school? Because you're at school, you're being taught how to present yourself to the world. And so if you can't wear your hair properly, you don't moisturize your locks, you don't put your locks in a way. I'm having my hair locks at the moment. If you don't look like everybody says, oh, your picture looks really powerful. Yeah, but my hair's locked in that picture. Nobody knows that. But people have this connotation that locks is to do with people who don't know how to keep their hair. And if you change that narrative by having the locks look presentable, then locks no longer becomes a problem in school. So yeah, Anthea, I agree with you. But I think sometimes as parents, we also have to ride with the wave, understand the rules, and then once we've worked with the rules, if we work with the rules and we present ourselves in a certain way, it's easily accepted. It's when we present ourselves in a certain way that even me as a Black person looking at you, I'd be like, what are you doing? I think, yeah, that's all I wanted to add.
Yeah, that's fascinating as well, Elaine. So I was a little bit scared to share this story, but I'm going to share it and I'm going to see what you think about this. I mentioned that I worked in a school with all boys for the last 5 years of my teaching career, the last 5 years of a 12-year teaching career. And boys would often walk around with a comb in their hair and would brush their hair out in between lessons. And I was having none of it. I was like, you put your comb away.
No, let me just...
You put your comb away.
No.
Yeah, so I would say you put your comb away, and they would use my whiteness to say, you don't know what you're talking about, miss. If I don't brush my hair, this is going to happen. And it was just absolutely, they used that as an excuse. And I found that really interesting because it became a symbol almost of them walking around with their comb in their hair. And I would take their combs off of them just like I would anybody else that was walking around with, like girls walking around with a comb in their hair. What are your thoughts about that, Elaine? Because I know you'll be straight down the line with me on that one.
Here's my thing. The whole thing with the comb in the hair actually stems from what Black men used to do in prison in America. So it's the same with boys wearing their trousers halfway down their bum. Why would you want to present that way? Do you walk around with your toothbrush in your mouth? You do not. So let's just comb your hair and get it done. And you're not combing your hair in the middle of the day. And I always say this when I see that. Would you walk around in your mom's house with a comb in your hair? Would she allow that? No Black mother would ever allow that. So why would you think it's okay at school? And do not throw the card back and say, oh, it's because you're white, you don't understand my hair. That is foolishness. And this goes back to how you present yourself. Why are you presenting yourself with a comb in your hair? You wouldn't go to work with a comb in your hair. What are you talking about? I'm sorry, I'm just very real. I get very annoyed at things like this.
Thank you. I'm really glad because, I was called racist a number of times. And I think that, I didn't let that put me off because I know I'm not racist. I didn't let that put me off, but I would ban them from walking around with a comb in their hair. Anyway, we've slightly digressed, but we need to have these conversations, right? Because I know there are plenty of people in school who wouldn't challenge people because they were scared. It's just like girls wearing skirts that are too short. I used to have that challenge a lot when I worked in a school previous to the boys' school that I worked in. Girls wearing their skirts really, really short. I remember countless times walking up the stairs behind students, and it was just ridiculous sometimes what you saw. And I would be the first person to say, right, you're wearing this skirt, and I'd go and get a skirt and I'd give them a skirt that was an appropriate length, and but parents would come back and they would say, but this is how she expresses herself. I'm sorry, but no, we're not having that. So it's a really interesting conversation, and I'm really grateful to you, Elaine, for being so straight up and for speaking out. But yes, it's a very interesting conversation. Winnie or Weenie, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Tell me how to pronounce. Weenie, got it. So I'm half German, and an E and an I is an I in German. So yeah, there you go.
That's interesting. The Italians happen to pronounce it quite well because the language is just all the yes. So that's easier. But no, so it's Weenie. Elaine, I completely agree with you because that's what I tell my son as well. So he has to behave in the same way that when he's at home with me, like, that's the behavior I expect of him when he's out there. So if he has respect, then then he has to respect others. But going back to that comb, from my culture, for example, we have a tribe that actually do use an Afro comb in their hair. But we also have to remember that if they were here, then if they were going to school, that they're not out there in the middle of nowhere because the tribe is in the desert. So that's why they have that comb, and so it's always there. It's part of their culture. But we have to differentiate, what's culture and what's identity, even though they're quite similar. But their identity should not be stripped away, but they should not also use it to get away with things. And that's sometimes, that's the boys, they try to get away. They try to push the boundaries and make another person feel uncomfortable. But with Ife's case, for example, having the short hair on the side, that is part of their identity. And I completely disagree with any school telling me about my son. As long as it's tidy, it's neat, and it's presentable, that is fine, because I don't want him to be stripped away from his identity. That is part of the identity, and we've got all different hairstyles. So if a white person can have one side of the hair short and so on, or have it to the side, why not? Why not our Black boys? Why not?
Yeah, very.
As Elaine said, let's make it neat, presentable, but not stripped away.
Wayne, thank you so much for that. Absolutely. I'll come to you, Funmi. I can see you flashing away, but just quickly before I do, I have to get this out there because it's been on my mind since we opened the room. When we talk about hair, just give me a flash of the mic if you understand what I say when I'm saying the audacity of Boris Johnson's hair. Can we just see a flash of mics? The absolute audacity. That there is white privilege in its absolute extreme. I will wear my hair however I like. And it's done on purpose, by the way, to present this kind of goofy tomfoolery way of being, which kind of suggests that he's not particularly intelligent or clever, and that he's actually quite soft and cuddly and bushy, and he uses his hair. But every time I see him, I'm like, for God's sake, sort your hair out. And I find that so appalling when we are telling boys in school or girls in school to wear their hair appropriately, and then you see somebody like him with a mop on his head. I find that infuriating. I don't know. I'm clearly not the only one, but I remember talking about it recently and just being so cross. Funmi, I'm coming to you. Funmi, I'm coming to you, or have I put you off with my crossness? There she is.
Hey, no, I couldn't unmic. I was somewhere jumping into a room with someone. But no, I was laughing at the Boris Johnson and the hair. But I love this conversation. Thanks for having the room, and it's been great listening to everyone sharing. I've changed my profile picture to my youngest child. And something that Wayne said, she spoke about stripping away their identity, and that shouldn't have to happen to anyone. And when I look back at my 2 boys, I've got a 10-year-old and a 2-year-old. And I remember my 10-year-old, he always, he's loved his hair. He's never had like a conventional low cut. He's always had like low sides, but hair on the top. And I know that I remember my mum saying, oh, we need to cut his hair. This is not how it should be worn. And I remember once actually giving in, and we went and got his hair cut. And he cried Like, he cried. I wasn't there, thank goodness. It was my husband that took him at the time, but he cried buckets because his hair was being cut. And I remember him coming back home and being so upset. From that day, I felt like, no, he feels this is his identity. It's his crowning glory to him, you know, and he's always loved his hair. And then had my second child, and he's exactly the same. Like, he loves his hair so much. We've tried, like, in this picture, you can see that it's lower. We try and keep it neat, but it was way bigger than that. He's got beautiful curls, but he doesn't want it cut. And we've never had any issues with schools because I've always been quite careful, I guess, about the choices that I make for the schools that I picked for them. So we've not been in a position where we've had to force them, apart from the time when I did my 10-year-old's hair, but where we've had to force them to, you know, cut their hair. And I really feel that, as Wayne says, you know, it is their identity. And I'm so happy that we're able to allow them to be who they want to be. But I do understand it has to be neat. So I loved what Elaine said about, you know, it's about having the hair neat. But I think, you know, hair should be celebrated. And I love the topic of this room. I love our black hair. And I love my boys' hair. And yeah, I really don't want to cut it. And I'm here in Nigeria now, and it's not the norm to have big hair. Like, most of the kids have short hair, but we're rocking his hair like this because that's what they want. That's what we want. And as long as it's neat and tidy, then we don't really care what other people think. So that's my share, Lucienne. Thanks for the room, and thanks to everyone that has contributed. I've loved the conversation.
Thank you, Funmi. Thank you for being here and sharing your thoughts as well. And we are going to be closing the room shortly, unless there is anybody else who would like to share their experience before we go. I think we've heard from most people on the stage, and it's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much to Suad, Elaine, Ife, Funmi, Mary. We've had Wayne, and we've had Ferdous and Jacqueline and Rita and Marianne and Cass, and those of you, Anthea, Monica, Mavel. Lovely to see you, Mavel. Not seen you for a while. Norda, Mitzi, Onyinimi, and Eugene. It's been absolutely wonderful to have you here with me and with us as a collective. This is the Collective of Extraordinary Women, and every single Wednesday at 1 o'clock we come in and we talk about topics that are pertinent to women. I am a business mindset mastery coach and mentor, and I love having these spaces. I bounce to these rooms, and I'm so glad when I see your lovely faces joining the room as well. Tomorrow at 4 p.m. I am beta testing for LinkedIn their new audio rooms. So if you do want to follow me on LinkedIn or on Instagram, I'll be posting about that as well. Come and have a look at what it looks like behind the scenes. Elaine was helping me yesterday in just trialing it out, and it was absolutely fascinating to see how it worked. Lots of very similar capabilities to the Clubhouse room, but with the added connection of a LinkedIn platform as well. So wonderful to have you all here. Go off and shake out those locks. Have a wonderful time enjoying your hair. I am wearing my hair extensions this week and absolutely loving them, and I thank you all for sharing your experiences. I'm really pleased to say that one of my black friends has been hired into Harrods to be working as a specialist for black hair to make sure that they are catering. But can you believe that it's 2020, well, it's 2022, 2021 when she was hired in to be able to advise on the styling of black people's hair. Can you believe that it has taken that long for retail to get up to scratch when it comes to diversity and inclusion? Absolute madness. Okay, folks, have an absolutely cracking week. I love you all. Thank you so much for sharing, and I'll see you all either tomorrow at 4 or next week at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye, Lucia.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.